So we are not faulting you. It says execution. You don't execute with money. When you say Ghanaians should build hospital, do they have the money? Will government give them money to do that?
All right, Honorable Harris, thank you very, very much for joining us. That's the minority leader in Parliament joining us. He has to leave us. But Dr. Yankson, since you have your finance background also, so we see a reduction, a revision, not reduction, revision of the projected growth rate of 6.8% to 0.9%. Well, yes, we're in COVID era, but that should get us worried, because if we're pumping all this money and yet we're growing at this rate, that's worrying.
Yeah, in fact, Winston, that is a big worry, because prior to his announcement yesterday, all the projections were looking something in the neighborhood of 2.5.
Yeah, because he said that when he went there in March 30th.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but with this current revision and what we are seeing, then clearly we are doing less than 1%.
Yes.
And what it means is that the impact on the economy from now to the next, the short to medium term is going to be very, very drastic on all of us, because we were hoping that as a country we were going to sustain, relatively high growth rates such that we could do a lot of the amenities and social things we needed to do and all that. But at a growth of less than 1%, basically you are stagnant. We haven't gone into a recession, but you are stagnant, and it will take a lot more hard work to be able to, come round and revitalize the entire economy and move it to where we were, let's say, a year or two ago. It's going to be a daunting task, and the impact is going to be on all sectors. Some sectors will feel it the more, but generally it's going to be a big call for all of us. It's going to be hard.
Now, let me just do this clarification, Kojo. So I talked about the lifeline consumers. I said 18 cities or less. So it's 19.26 cities.
Oh, Dama.
Yes.
Oh, you have just brought maybe...
let me just...
So we need to be accurate
accurate figures, yes. So
you brought maybe two more people into the bracket.
Yes.
By clarifying, thank you.
19.26 cities.
Yes. 19.26.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
but the other bit about it is that we also have people in the country, especially in the rural areas, who actually consume just about these figures we are talking about.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I have a question. It's a general thing, okay, about what we heard yesterday. The president said that we know how to bring back the economy. We don't know how to bring back lives. Do you feel that what we heard yesterday reflects this? Have you heard in yesterday's address anything that gives you hope that indeed we know how to bring back the economy?
Well, my summary of all that we had yesterday will be this. I see this more as trying to contain a situation, but not really bringing it back to where it ought to be. We are just trying to contain the hardships and the effect of COVID on every sector of the economy. And if we are able to contain it, then we'll actually start thinking of measures to bring it back. I think we just are doing our best not to ensure that the slide is not one that will more or less collapse us completely. That is the only way I see this whole bit. It is not really about trying to push everybody back up to where we were. Because if you look at the stimulus packages, yes, the idea is good. But if you look at the sectors and you try to do, distribution to individual players within a particular sector, you realize that whatever will be going to them will be such that it cannot really stimulate the businesses the way they ought to be stimulated. And clearly, whatever distribution methods that will be used, some might not even get the support at all. So for me, it is more of trying to contain the situation at this point, and then probably in the years to come we'll really think about the true measures that will bring us back to where we were.
Well, but that's what the challenge is also, as we begin to think of the true measures that will bring us back, because you would agree, for instance, that now as we borrow, it has impact on us. It has impact because the more you borrow, it also would have an impact on your foreign direct investments, because in future, when you decide to pay your debt, you would have to be thinking of taxes. What sort of taxes are you going to be putting in? So even as we think about, the need to stimulate businesses, shouldn't we also be looking at the possible effect it would have on the economy going forward?
I think the two always have to be weighed side by side because, for example, I mean, nobody can say what will happen next year in terms of taxation, but there are only two options. We either stay where we are or potentially will add on to the taxes, which it's one of the options that you cannot throw away. And if we're going to add, by how much in terms of percentages, and what will the impact of that be on all of us? Because some of the people are not even going to recover within the next 1 to 2 years. It will take a longer period. So it is going to be a very difficult session for all of us.
Yeah.
And we need to be very innovative, really, to stimulate our production base.
Finally, I mean, we're in July. We've got 5 months to end the year. Do you see a clear distinction between what this government intends to do between now and the end of the year and what they intend to do, as a pipeline, for coming years if they win in December? I mean, do you see a difference? And can you assess what will be done this year to see whether indeed it is sufficient?
You see, if you look at the budget the media has presented, clearly you have a situation where some measures were put in place for the rest of the year, and then some are projected for the next 2 to 3 years. Now, unfortunately, we don't seem to have a lot more detail for those ones.
Right.
So we can only hazard guesses that, look, going forward, we think that government may probably look at the worst hit areas, or they will look at some specialized areas that we can have some comparative advantages, and then we'll focus on them. And then hopefully, if our main natural resource bases that we export, so now it's crude, a bit of gold here and there, and then maybe what we get from the agricultural sector, we hope that we can actually do some stimulations in there to ensure that we get maximum out of it. Trade is going to be a bit difficult for us, as well as industry, because the packages that we have in place now, I don't think are good enough to stimulate industry to the levels that they ought to be. I mean, yes, it's good we have started something. I'm looking at the media, for example, and then creative arts. You are giving about 30 million. If you look at the whole sector, would this be good enough? But, of course, we started from some point.
I guess we have. Dr. Justice Youngson, it is always a delight. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us for this all-important conversation. And let's see you again soon.
Yeah, but one thing that I was not really happy about in yesterday's budget, as far as the health sector is concerned, where I come from, is the fact that we don't seem to appreciate the fact that the health sector itself also needs a stimulus package.
Right.
Most health facilities are actually on their knees because, especially in the private sector, they have actually spent a lot of their resources on PPEs and all the COVID-related matters to the point where their running capital has actually dwindled. Some of the public health facilities, yes, government is supporting them, but they are also impacted because they are generating very little by way of the funds that they usually would generate if they were operating at full capacity. So the health sector itself, I will take advantage of this to call on government to quickly look at that sector in its totality and have a special package for them.
Right.
When you go out there, the US, Germany, the United Kingdom, packages are being prepared specifically for the health sector.
Right.
People think that we are getting resources, but we have actually also been hit so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Justice Youngson there, and he's the General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association, and hopefully we'll be back on the show very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you too. It's 9:43. More after these.
What would you do